if Daisy wasn't getting water sprayed in her face.
Yeah, exactly.
She would have looked completely different. If Adam's hair wasn't sticking to his forehead,
Yeah.
you know, you never could have recreated that.
It creates that sense in the audience too.
Exactly.
Everybody knows what it's like to be stuck in the rain, or you know,
Yeah.
Right, or freezing.
and have to.
Yeah,
And then-
this was outside, and they were freezing. It was a 7-day shoot, and never complained once, but they were literally freezing, and
But
she
you
had bare
can
arms.
even
and legs.
see it in their skin and their, it's
And the
a
performance
totally-
you're going to get out of that. You know, I always say to somebody, if you want to, you know, when they say, well, let's pretend that you're next to an explosion. Well, I tell you, if you stand next to an explosion, you get a much better reaction.
And also, just another thing is, you know, there's that serpent in the tunnels. There's Maz Kanata on the stage. There, we had, you know, Babu Frick. All these characters were there being performed, but then, you know, Roger took those elements and embellished and enhanced, and it allowed for the best of both worlds. And it was an amazing thing to watch everyone do their part and work together and make the stuff that was better.
Obviously, it's a massive collaboration, isn't it?
Do you have anything else you'd like to add to all that?
Well, I was just going to say, just going back to the sets briefly, one of the things that I think that everybody here does is they don't approach a visual effects movie like a visual effects movie. When you're building a set like where the Blockade Runner is, one thing that probably people don't realize is when you're looking at the back of the Blockade Runner, that was actually just constructed perspective painted flats at the back of the ship. And we said to each other at some point, maybe we'll have to replace those depending on how it looks, when we see it. But when we saw it on film, it's amazing. It looks great. And that's the sort of stuff that it's worth doing that, because you may just get something kind of magical out of it. And
the other
it was
thing
really,
I can
really cool.
say is that the key is the collaboration. That's what JJ has led all of us into. We really get along, and we all really believe in it. I mean, this is not like a job. We join in on the wavelength that JJ and Chris have set up here, Kathy and the whole universe with Michelle. And so there's no real boundaries that we have when we're trying to discuss something as to how to make something happen. So I feel very proud of that part of what you get to see as the impact of the final chapter.
But it goes both ways, because then we're inspired by what we see from the design team. Like, for example, we wanted to give the cave, the resistance base, a soul, and we couldn't figure out how you make it not just look like a Bond layer or the Bat Cave or something. And then Kevin and Rick came up with the idea of always seeing the Blockade Runner in the background. And that ship that you see in the cave is the first ship you ever see in Star Wars. That's Leia's ship that is fleeing from the Star Destroyer in 1977. And so to always have that present in the background felt like it was the spirit of Leia. And in fact, I think JJ masterfully, in the shot where Leia dies, what you see in the background is the first ship you ever saw in Star Wars. You see Leia, you see Han's medal that he received at the end of Star Wars, and you see R2 leaning toward Leia in the way that he did in their first scene together when he got the plans to the Death Star. So to me, that was this marriage of design and imagination and concept art and directing and all these things coming together to tell the story in one tableau, which you could never write. It would have to be a collaboration.
And you also see it ascend, right? In a way, sort of like her spirit depart. So I want to talk about the sound design and the sound mixing, and particularly one moment when the ceiling opens up and the Emperor unleashes his force lightning on the fleet. That's a pretty spectacular moment, and we were talking about it a little bit outside. But right. You designed it to sound like the speakers were malfunctioning, like they had been blown out.
Right. So that's when the Emperor opens up with this kind of mother of all force lightning attacks to take down the resistance ships. So we had prepped this kind of explosive electrical blast, kind of what I thought was fairly impressive, but JJ thought, like, let's push it. Let's go bigger. Let's make it like melt brains and make it sound like, your ears are going deaf or the speakers are going out, just like go crazy with it. So we prepped this thing that was this kind of what it is an electric toothbrush on a piece of metal, and it's kind of pitched down and then it's way overmodulated, so it's got this crazy...
Humble origins, just like Rey.
Right, yeah, exactly. The Emperor's toothbrush, so that's the...